DG episode 71, take two. My name is Dave Hunt, and I'm joined by Michael Swick.
How's it going, Dave? I kind of already know the answer. Just spent the last half hour
Yeah,
having you reconfigure everything.
yeah,
But everything seems to be okay.
so
And
far.
if it isn't, we'll push on through.
Yeah. We are Digital Days Gaming. We are a weekly podcast that uploads every Thursday at 6 a.m. Eastern Time. You can get early access to it through our Patreon, patreon.com/Digital Days Gaming. We cover all things gaming related, or if it's just a topic of discussion that we both want to talk about or our community mentions, we'll cover it. There are multiple links in the show notes that you can click on to follow us or join our community if you so choose. As always, sharing the show, rating, and writing a review is super, super helpful. It moves us up the charts so that other people can discover the show. As we are into the early parts of March, it's actually March. Yeah, it is March, or first week of March. We finally have a little bit of news to talk about, and something that we missed last week. So we're going to jump right into that.
Yeah, so what we missed last week was Epic Games buying Mediatonic, the creators of Fall Guys, but they bought the Tonic Games Group, which owns Mediatonic and two other studios. It was purchased for an undisclosed amount of money, but this is kind of in line in what Epic kind of does. It seems like when they bought Psyonix for Rocket League, they buy whatever game is really popular on Twitch, it seems, and then they jump on it. So this is it's a good move for Mediatonic. I don't really understand it for Epic, just because like Fall Guys, I love Fall Guys, but it was really hot for the summer. I know it's still one of it's in the top 20 to 30 of Twitch games, but I definitely felt like it was kind of winding down a little bit in terms of its popularity. But good on Mediatonic for getting acquired for
Yeah.
a mystery sum of money.
It makes you wonder, though, like maybe what else that they're showing that they're working on. That's definitely like that they can say, hey, we learned this from Fall Guys, and we're starting, as they're developing more seasonal content, obviously, and as well as maybe what their plans for Fall Guys are, or if their plans for like a different IP. They are a relatively small studio, though.
Yeah, yes, and like the studio. So Mediatonic is weird how it functions. It's like it's multiple projects at one time. The teams for each project can be little, but they do work on a bunch of different mobile games. But this was just one of those games that were pitched and that just happened to catch fire with Fall Guys. Also in the acquisition is a regular corporation, which did Murder by Numbers last year, and then PC Building Simulator, which oddly enough is, I think, available on consoles, and a newer studio, Fortitude Games. So all three of those are the studios that were purchased in this. So it just adds to Epic Games' like library right now. Like they bought Psyonix and they seem to let Psyonix just do what they want. And Rocket League is continuing to be a recognizable brand with little interference from Epic, as far as we can tell.
Yeah, and I think that Epic just similar to what we've been talking about over the last like year, almost all of DDG's life in general, as these studios are getting acquired. This is just a safety net. Like they get a chance to take more risks now because they have a little bit more money to be like, hey, you know what? Like this is a this idea we think might work, and like Epic's board might be like, hey, you know what? We're on board with giving this a shot, and it won't cripple the studio if it fails.
Yeah, especially like almost a year from the release of Fall Guys, not give or take like 4 months. This right now would be the time where a studio would be forced to be, focused on Fall Guys 2 or their next project. This money from Epic allows them to maybe just run Fall Guys as an ongoing, games for service sort of business. And as of right now, it's going to continue to be on Steam. But Rocket League also did that for a little bit before it became Epic Game Store exclusive. So I imagine that is in the future. This isn't going to interfere with Fall Guys coming to Switch or Xbox this summer, but it just builds Epic's library. I mean, Epic doesn't make all their money from their non-Fortnite games. They make a ton of their money from their engine licensing and all the stuff they do with like Mandalorian and Disney for those projects. So this is just like a thing that Epic can do to keep a studio running and just add to their portfolio. And if it works out, it works out. I'm wondering. We haven't heard anything about how much this ended up costing Epic. It probably wasn't a ton of money comparatively to the deal that we'll talk about later and some of the other acquisitions we've seen. But it's just something that Epic can just say they did. They could put it in their arsenal and say they have one of the most popular games of
Yeah, I was gonna say,
2020.
how much do you think that? So we've seen some ridiculous numbers, but like, how much do you think that a studio that has a top, I'd say top 20 selling game on Steam for 2020?
Yeah.
How much do you think that would be worth?
I mean, it's three studios. Fall Guys seems to be a big name. I would probably say we always base it off of like what Insomniac got paid.
Right.
Insomniac got like 250 million. I wouldn't be surprised if this is in like the 50 million to 100 million range.
Okay.
Because you always overpay for what a company
New
actually
hotness
is
yeah.
worth.
So.
Yeah. So I would probably imagine that. What would your guess be?
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Like, I mean, I think it might be closer to 100 mil, but like, because I'm still like, I look back at it all the time. I'm still flabbergasted by like how much the Conan studio sold for.
Yeah, that's your go-to one.
Yeah,
like I always use Insomniac of like a super undervalued acquisition.
And I think the Insomniac thing is different in terms of like they already had a relationship with Sony. I think the IPs that they wanted to work on and Sony wanted them to work on were owned by Sony. So it was more or less of like, hey, let's meet in the middle. And we already have a working relationship. The studio I don't feel like they really needed to be purchased. But it was more or less one of the inevitable things of like, oh, I already, it's like when you hear like friends of yours that you've known for like 10 years, like, oh, we're getting married. I'm like, oh, you weren't married? It's like.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where it for like an Insomniac, it just made sense. Like they tried to go it on their own for a little bit and then didn't work out too well. So when Sony came, they probably got a deal on it. Like when you hear about like free agents in sports giving a hometown discount sort of deal, I could see that for Insomniac. But this is good for Mediatonic Games that they now have the backing of Epic to continue to work on Fall Guys. Like I've met some of the people from Mediatonic that were working on the game. I don't imagine they were expecting Fall Guys to take off like it did, and then now they're going to be bankrolled by Epic / Tencent for their next game.
It's definitely it's good for them.
them.
Like, because I mean, we get to see like it just means that you won't hear about. You tweeted about it this week. The developer for what was it? Deception? What was the game?
Disintegration.
Like they're done.
That's our next story.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
That's our next story.
I didn't look far enough. I really did not look far enough ahead. I usually take credit for good segues, but I didn't look that far ahead.
Well, here's our segue.
Right.
V1 Interactive, the studio founded in 2015 by Marcus Leto, the co-creator of Halo. He announced his studio are closing. They aren't like catching their employees by surprise. They said they've given their employees enough of a like heads up that this was going to happen, that they hopefully can find other places to work. But they released their first game last year, Disintegration, which I reviewed. I think there's a YouTube review on youtube.com/digitaldaysgame gaming. Disintegration was one of those games where it's just like, I thought there was like enough there that if it found any sort of level of success, their sequel would be significantly better and could catch more eyes, but it just never took off. But if you want to bring up what you're going to talk about?
Yeah, so I mean, again, like there's a studio that a game like we just talked about, that like Fall Guys takes off, and then they have extreme amount of value, and like now, like I was saying earlier, like they can maybe take a risk, and make a different game, or change up how seasonal content works in Fall Guys, or like whatever they want to do. And then a company that, like I pounded the table for months of like new IPs, like new interesting things that, that people haven't done before, which is hard. And then it's even scarier when, like you as a studio, if, you start a studio with great pedigree, I mean, a co-creator of Halo, great pedigree, and it just doesn't click. And when it doesn't click, you're not in business anymore.
Yeah, especially when it comes to like this game, where again, I think there was enough of a foundation. It was a rough game in terms of it felt light on content and multiplayer didn't take off, but I felt like it could have been something more, but they needed more funding. I mean the writing was on the wall last year, November December. They announced the multiplayer was being shut down for that game because no one was playing it. Uh, so it looks like they tried to hold on as much as they could, but yeah, a studio like this, you would think with the pedigree that they would be able to attract more people to them. But in relation to like Mediatonic, Fall Guys now can be handed to the machine that is Epic, and then Mediatonic themselves can then focus on another game,
Mm-hmm.
and they can keep Fall Guys updated with content just because Epic has the money to just put a couple people or a whole team on just making seasonal content for that game. And
Yeah, and let's not let it go like undervalued of like the publishing and the marketing aspect. Like let the developers develop the game and make the game.
Mhm.
And then like that's why you see like some of these huge publishing deals because a lot of times the companies just don't want to deal with it. They want somebody else to like it's a PR firm they have to hire. There's press releases, there's interview scheduling. Those are people you have to like you either have to hire and you have to retain them. And then we also hear for a long time we heard about it sucks that Studio A ramped up and they made 3 games and then after the like 2 of the 3 games didn't do so well, I lost my job. Like that's not fair. And I'm like, well, like this is why so all these things that happen like I've known multiple PR people that have contracts with the company that they're working for that are stingent upon them still publishing said game. The thing that comes to mind the most was the Activision and Destiny split. I covered Destiny extensively, and a lot of those people that were PR for the company through Activision, once Destiny wasn't there anymore, they didn't have a job anymore because they got hired for Destiny public relations strictly.
Yeah, well, that happens a lot. Where a lot of the people around the game, their job is only there as long as that game or franchise exists. So when you have something like Disintegration, like it was through Private Division, which
Hmm.
published they published The Outer Worlds, but that studio was ended up bought by Bethesda
Hmm.
or purchased by Microsoft. So then Private Division had this game, and then this game didn't take off. So you wonder what like the future of like Private Division is in terms of like the that as a brand. Like they had one hit, but the studio that made that hit is no longer with them anymore. And then they were working with this one. This didn't take. So this whole thing can cause like waves through like the industry a little bit. Even if a small game like this could cause a lot of people to have to change their lives
Hmm.
and like
And
rework what they're doing.
who wouldn't want to go work at a studio for a guy that co-created Halo?
Yeah, I'm sure most of the people that like got a job there were like, "Oh, this dude worked at Bungie.
Yeah.
He worked on,
Well, and
Halo."
there's a handful of other people that left Bungie and are working at a studio. Because I follow a lot of them on Twitter. Because like again, I had a good relationship with some of the developers at Bungie for a long time. Um, Sometimes always monsters. Like there's a lot of the Sandbox team people that they
Mhm.
took from Bungie and brought them to this other one, and it's been 3 years.
Yeah.
Like 2.5 or 3 years since I'm trying to think since the studio was formed, and they haven't even announced their game. So this is a huge investment for a new studio to be created, and let alone to make a new IP. And this is why like I've been thinking about this like all week. I played a little bit more of Outriders, and I'm probably going to buy Outriders strictly because I want new IPs. Like I want
Yeah.
new stuff, and I can't sit here as a content creator, or a podcaster, or whatever, and sit there and be like, I want new, unique experiences, and then not dip my toe into Outriders because like the first 5 levels of it didn't feel as good as I expected it to feel.
Yeah, especially Outriders does have the Square Enix problem where the
Yeah,
sales expectations for that are probably going to be ridiculous, and that will drive how successful that game is. But
but I
yeah,
bought I bought
uh,
Avengers too, like
yeah,
because I wanted to, like I don't know, like I'm probably not going to go back. They've done some, like I keep saying I'll go back for the next gen thing, but the stuff that they've been talking about like the last 10 days sounds terrible. Uh,
yeah. There's been a lot of back and forth on like, oh, it's harder and it's not that hard to level up and stuff like that. So it's definitely a weird thing. I was gonna put that in the news, but I was just like, I
Yeah.
don't understand exactly
Yeah,
what they're doing. By the time we,
I don't either. And at that point, it's like, you're just digging your own hole right now. It's again like the bottom line. What you need to know with whatever's going on with Avengers right now, and I'm not playing it currently, so I can't really speak into it that detailed. But everything I've seen is similar to Anthem. Of here, Division and Destiny and For Honor and Fortnite kind of showed you like ways to overcome hurdles and objectives as you're building a games as a service. And then, maybe you get to a fork in a road and you can go left or right. And left is the bad thing because you've seen the other companies do it. They just keep going left. So it's doesn't make any sense.
yeah, I mean, we've seen that way too many times, or where people don't pay attention to the previous games, but yeah, to your point about like the new IPs, that's why I was interested in Disintegration when it came out. I'm like, oh, cool, like a new IP, trying something different, and it didn't take off. Especially as like when we were talking last week about Japan studio closing, they made a lot of unique games under that umbrella, under the Sony name. So when you see a studio like that close, it's definitely one of those things where it's just like, shit. There goes the potential for cool things, and everything's just going to be thrown into like the Astro franchise. Dave from Philly's comment in the chat cracked me up because I know what game he's talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's definitely one of those things. I have a hunger for new IPs, and then when you see something like this, where a new studio, they put one game out, new IP, it failed.
They're
and
done.
Now that studio's gone.
Yeah,
that's it. That's all they have. So you see why publishers and studios just play it safe. You see why THQ Nordic just buys old IPs and does remasters because it's easy money. You see why on PlayStation side, I love all the PlayStation exclusives, but I'm also kind of tired of them all just being third-person open world games. But that's just what makes money. So that's why when they look at like Japan studio, they're just like, hey, is it really worth it? And then they shutter it, and you see studios like this close. It's just a sad story. I'm sure Marcus Leto, he will not disappear after this. He'll probably try something else. Especially you see this with like the creators of like gigantic franchises, where like Cliffy B comes and goes. It will make a new studio. That studio will close, and then he'll be back to do something else. So I'm assuming the creator of Halo will be back at it again, even if it means he'll end up back at like a Bungie or 343 Studios and just doing what he is known for. But yeah, another studio closure, and then same week, of course, a studio gets acquired. But let's talk about, I guess, the big story, though it's not too big because there's not a ton of new stuff here, just some potential clarifications that we're gonna read into. But the Bethesda acquisition is officially done.
EU
Microsoft
and US have approved it. So
yeah, Microsoft officially owns it. Apparently, what may have been taking too long is there was like a small investment group that Microsoft had to acquire their shares to like tighten up the deal, and then the EU and the US had to approve it. But that is officially a done deal, and we are going to start seeing news come from that deal this week. I believe Thursday is the day everyone is saying we'll find out more information. But from what we got today from the press release, confirms that all 8 studios are now owned by Microsoft. It's Bethesda Game Studios, id Software, ZeniMax Online Studios, Arcane, Machine Games, Tango Gameworks, Alpha Dog, and Roadhouse Studios. So those are now all Microsoft-owned studios. And the interesting thing that everyone has picked up on is Phil Spencer had a blog post on the Xbox website where he says, this is the next step in building the industry-leading first-party studios team, a commitment we have to our Xbox community with an addition of the Bethesda creative teams. Gamers should know that Xbox consoles, PC, and Game Pass will be the best place to experience new Bethesda games, including some new Game Pass well, no, so including some new titles in the future that will be exclusive to Xbox and PC. So that's the key line from this statement is some of the future games will be exclusive to Xbox and PC, which yeah. But the reason he can't say all of them are the obvious ones. They have 2 games this year that are exclusive to Sony, Deathloop and Ghostwire. And then there's other games like Elder Scrolls Online. They're not going to rip that from PSN. That game does well enough for them, so they're not going to take that away. That is a game that they will have to support forever on PlayStation consoles. And then there's stuff like Indiana Jones. That deal was started before this acquisition, most likely. So you would imagine that that deal probably has to include everything because it's Disney issuing out this license to them. So there's a chance Indiana Jones will make it to all platforms. But everything else is most likely going to be exclusive. And that, to me, just makes sense. Like, you don't spend this money and the start of a console race and not do anything.
So, like, has Starfield been officially announced?
They just put out like that teaser 2 or 3 years ago, but there was no console announcement for that because it was during a time where we knew new consoles were coming, so no consoles were named for that.
Okay, yeah, because like
just a teaser.
The stuff that I kind of saw on Twitter today that I was reading through a little bit that seems to make a lot of sense is similar to what you were just saying, is that more than likely if it's a games as a service, it's probably going to be multi-platform. But any new, like, brand new IP or anything that they are either in development of that's unannounced, that's not a licensed deal. I agree with you 100%. Indiana Jones, this is probably, like we started negotiating this 2 or 3 years ago. And the deal was probably signed a year before we ever heard about it. Like that one was probably like, oh, like, well, we're going to do this, this, and this. And Lucas or Disney at the time said, okay, like, that's fine. Like, well, we agree to that. That's already written. Obviously, Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo, or Tokyo Ghostwire, whatever it's,
yeah.
Those are obvious. But I think anything going forward, like, what's your feeling on, like, Fallout 5?
Xbox exclusive.
Okay.
I feel like they have no
Do you consider Fallout a games as a service now?
No, because they tried it with 76.
Okay.
Like, they're not going to take 76 away from PlayStation consoles, but anything Fallout after that, I don't think they're going to go to the... I think they learned from Fallout 76 that, like, okay, Elder Scrolls Online works, Fallout 76 doesn't work. Our next we'll make an MMO before we make a games
what
as
about
a service thing.
If we get a Dishonored 3?
Xbox exclusive.
Okay.
I think, like, realistically, unless they're going to try, like, an esports game or something like that.
Can you think of any, not to cut you off, I'm sorry, but can you think of any franchise that's had a game released multi-platform and then a subsequent sequel become exclusive? I think it's gone the other way.
Yeah, it's definitely gone the other way.
Yeah.
But I'm not, I don't think I can remember anything like that. Especially it gets tricky just because we're in the middle of, like, trilogies. I think Wolfenstein's supposed to be a trilogy.
Right.
Is Wolfenstein 3 gonna just say bye to the PlayStation users? Is it a big enough game that they're worried about people being upset that Wolfenstein isn't going to be on?
Well, and the other thing is that they don't have a publisher that they sign contracts with. That they publish themselves, ZeniMax.
Yeah.
And Microsoft bought them too. So
yeah, I just, like, looking at, like, what Bethesda owns, like, I don't see them, there's no reason for them to do that. As much as I would want everyone to play games, I'm just being realistic, with, like, there's a good chance that the only Bethesda games coming to PlayStation are the ones already announced as confirmed on a platform, or the ones that are already available, like their MMOs and other multiplayer games. Everything else, I think Microsoft spent $7.5 billion. Like, and we're at the start of a console race. Like, and they want to sell Game Pass.
Was it again? Roughly?
8.
Okay. So just doing basic 93 million a studio.
No.
7.5 divided by 8 is 93.
So 930 million a studio then.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, 900. Yeah, 930 million a studio. So almost $1 billion a studio. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Sony buys Insomniac for a quarter of that, and everything Insomniac's going to make going forward is going to be PlayStation exclusive. Nobody's upset about that.
No one's really upset that Deathloop and Ghostwire have paid exclusivity, like.
But why did Sony buy Insomniac?
For their exclusive games to make them their studio. And especially when we're talking about like that much money being put down, it just makes sense that they're trying to sell their Game Pass. They're trying to sell their new console. Mm-hmm. It'd be silly for them to be like, we spent $7.5 billion so everyone can play. It's just like, no.
So but you feel like Elder Scrolls 6 will be multi-platform?
PC and Xbox.
You're saying Elder Scrolls 6 will be Microsoft exclusive?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a single player game. Like, but you don't see them like ESO : next expansion will continue to be multi-platform. That will continue just because they already have people paying monthly fees, and they probably most MMOs sell some sort of lifetime membership, so they kind of are bought into.
But the newest version of Skyrim will be Xbox exclusive.
Yes,
okay.
I think
I think it makes sense, and I mean that's you're talking 900 $1 billion a studio. Like, you don't pay $1 billion a studio just to not to have it on your platform and to move your hardware. And it's not, and I don't think it's just about, I don't think it's just about console sales. I don't think it's just about Game Pass subscriptions. I think it's about establishing your library of, establishing yourself as people have always criticized Microsoft first party the last 5 to 7 years, rightfully so. So now they've tried working with studios. They've tried creating their own studios, and it just doesn't seem to work. So now they're just going to be like, you know what, forget it. Like, they probably overpaid for Bethesda, maybe, but but this is what you need to do. Like, did they try to go get Ubisoft? Who knows? There's been a ton of rumors swirling around that a lot of Ubisoft stuff's going to come to Game Pass. Microsoft probably is throwing a crap ton of money at them to do that, if that's true, and it's to bolster their lineup. Like, I have a hard time, like, if I want to play Halo, or if I wanted to play the Medium, or if I want to play Hellblade 2, or the new Psychonauts, or now going forward, anything else that Bethesda new brings out, why wouldn't you just subscribe to Game Pass? You don't even have to own a console or a PC at this point.
Yeah, you just have it on your phone. Well, especially like when we're talking about like the big picture of just like Microsoft gave Xbox $7.5 billion to make this grow and make more money. Microsoft's in it for like the big stakes, and that's getting people to buy their hardware, and that's to get people signed up to a service on their Windows PC, on a phone, on a console, to where I'm sure there are people that are like, oh, but they're going to lose out on no sales with PlayStation people. And it's like, I don't think Microsoft cares about like losing $100 million when they can possibly get that back or more through subscriptions.
Or next, like 7 years down the road, we're at 2027 or 2028. If we get another console generation, like, it's gonna have they'll have enough time to establish their first party library of people going, hey, you know what? I'm gonna make the jump to Xbox at this point in time. Like, I just bought a series 2 years ago, like in 2024. I only paid like $150 for it, and it came with like 3 years of Game Pass in the box, and now they're bringing out this new thing, and they're gonna launch Starfield 2 on it. And it's like, I'm in. Like,
yeah, well, it comes down to like, if they put it on other platforms, it's cool. They can get your $70, or they tempt you enough to put $500 for a new console and $15 a month for Game Pass. That's what they want. Like, they like the losing the $70, they don't care if they can get like 1 out of 5 people that are Fallout fans on PlayStation to come over and invest in the Xbox ecosystem.
It's the age-old question: do you want to sell 5 people something at $70, or do you want to sell 5 people something? You want to sell it to 5 people at $70 once a year, or do you want to sell 5 people $10 a month for a year.
For forever.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
You
just
know? Yeah.
like a year. Like I don't if anybody asks me like right now, it's like I'm getting I'm getting my kid an Xbox, or tons of people have been reaching out to Angela about helping get consoles because she seems to have some really good success with it. But if they're talking about, oh, he wants the new Halo, okay, just get him Game Pass, like, and just don't worry about it. Just
Yeah.
drop the $12 or $15, and it covers the online play for him to play Fortnite, or him to play like whatever else they're going to if it's a younger kid, like the that are still playing Fortnite, or anything new that's coming from Xbox, and then you have it, and it all comes down to like how important, like we talked about last week, like how important are the third party action adventure games to you. If that's not your genre, PlayStation might not be your jam. Xbox is.
Yeah, they have all different things, especially the variety of studios that Microsoft now has is kind of ridiculous in terms of everyone's expertise or specialties. And
No,
PlayStation.
so my wife just asked, has Sony ever bought a studio for that much money? No, but Sony has like kind of dangled out, like, here's a new IP for you to make. Oh, you did a good job making it. Now we're just going to buy you and make you make more of it, which is what they did to Naughty Dog, which is what they did to Sucker Punch. Sucker Punch made Infamous 1 before Sony owned them. I think the first Uncharted was made before.
I think we looked that up, and I think they were acquired around that same time, but they let them do Uncharted, and then they acquired them. Yeah, like, see, the difference between Sony and Microsoft is Sony has basically like homegrown all their studios into like these monoliths in the industry, and Microsoft tried to do that and have not been that successful.
They've homegrown
all they could do was acquire.
Couple studios. Like, do you consider Sony Bend to be like creme de la creme?
No. But like the monoliths that they created are freaking gigantic.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Microsoft tried to do that. It just really hasn't worked. Like after they acquired Bungie and then they lost Bungie. So then they try to make 343 Studios, and 343 Studios hasn't quite done what Bungie did. And they've been trying to do that. Microsoft bought Rare. Rare didn't go too well. Still around, but Rare was never the same. So they've been doing this acquiring thing since Xbox has been a platform, and this is like their biggest go for it. And this is what they kind of have to do, because it's kind of hard to just make a new studio with a new IP. We just saw what happened. With V1.
And this is what I talked about, is like addition. I still feel like in addition to is better than expansion. So when you expand, like we've heard that maybe Naughty Dog's expanding or Sony Santa Monica's expanding, you're taking the core foundation of that studio, the 4 or 5 people that build the foundation of that studio, and you're spreading them out. Like they're not focused on one game anymore. Now all of a sudden you have 2 on one game, and then 2 on another game, and one kind of going back and forth, versus like Phil Spencer now has, a meeting with Peter Hines, and it's like, okay, where, like I would assume, where are we at with these studios? Like it's Spencer, and it's Hines, and then it's Bethesda. And, and I feel like Hines will be obviously reporting to Spencer. Spencer has final say, but I think Hines still gets to run his studio, his company.
Yeah, I don't think if anything, I could see Microsoft being like, there's like 3 or 4 studios that we can cut. But you don't buy Bethesda and tell them what to do, basically. I think is your point. You let Bethesda be Bethesda and hope the time and potential extra money.
No, don't get me wrong. I guarantee you, like, Phil Spencer's going to be like, hey, that great, Fallout New Vegas game you guys made? We got the studio over here, and then maybe they, we've got Obsidian back over here. Like, how do you guys think about working together again and doing something, maybe, like whether it's New Vegas 2 or something else? But then you put these 2 studios together, and it's like, oh, these are the guys that made Vegas, Fallout New Vegas. Like, I'm in, like there's a lot of people like that. Like Sony just puts, like, when they start a trailer and it leads off of Naughty Dog, people are like, where's the pre-order button? They haven't even seen the title of the game. They're like, click.
And Microsoft hasn't had that until now.
Right. If they put out in 3 years, if they put out a trailer that says Obsidian X Bethesda, and that's all it says, and they put out some image like of a character, like, you want to talk about like YouTube breakdown videos of what that would be, that would happen.
Yeah, like immediately when this news went down, people were like, New Vegas 2, New Vegas 2, New Vegas 2. So there's like crazy crossover potential here. with what they can do and what they can do with their new toys and what they currently have available to them. Especially there's so many different franchises. Bethesda always had a problem where they could never do Elder Scrolls and Fallout at the same time because that was the same studio. But now they could, even though Obsidian's pretty busy, they can go. They know what to do with Fallout. We're going to give them Fallout, and then you guys just focus on Elder Scrolls. Don't have to worry about putting Elder Scrolls out and 2 years later pulling.
And then if there's
an
issue, Obsidian picks up the phone and they send half a dozen people from Bethesda over to Obsidian to help them, or whatever it is, a team of 20 that start helping them because they're the same company now, similar to how Sony helped Kojima when Kojima signed the deal with him. It's like, hey, I'm like this engine thing. All right, well, here's people from Guerrilla. Like, this is what the engine that we agreed to use. Here's staff from Guerrilla to help you figure it out. And we got that game.
I just hope
in a decent time frame.
Yeah, I just hope this leads to Bethesda changing engines to get away from their buggy engine, and just being able to take time. Because like right now, Microsoft might have the problem where they might have too many franchises that could potentially release at one time, which hopefully that means they can spread things out and therefore give developers more time.
At least there are multiple genres, though. Each studio is like, it specializes in like a different kind of genre, versus like we've talked about it before. Like you can't release, and they did anyways, but like, you try to do like God of War, Uncharted, Ghost, and, Infamous style games all within the same year. Like that's genre overload.
Or the classic one I think we talked about a couple weeks ago where Titanfall, Call of Duty, and Battlefield released within a week of each other. They can spread stuff out and help each other out. And then there's some studios here that I feel like will be safe no matter what because they're attached to franchises. There are some studios on this list that I'm like, oh, we're probably going to get a bad story in like 3 months of like this studio was merged into this one or this studio was closed.
Are you going to get a bad story anyways because they're going to have two people that are head of like media relations or whatever, and it's going to be like, oh, Microsoft laid off 100 people. Like, okay, well, they're all redundant jobs.
Now redundant because they're in a bigger company.
Right.
So we're definitely going to get news stories on that. And then we'll get more clarification on what's to come probably at E3. There won't be a Bethesda press conference. It's just going to be one big-ass Microsoft press conference. And then we'll just see what happens at Game Pass. They already said a bunch of new games are coming to Game Pass this week, which I assume will just be...
Yeah, it looks like Evil Within,
Yeah, that got leaked on the Microsoft Store. So we'll probably just see a bunch of old Fallout and Elder Scrolls games come into Game Pass this week.
They need to draw the line in the sand, though. The statement that was made today is too vague. Like they owe it to their user base and the player base and the people that are possibly shopping for consoles right now and thinking about like this is the only console I'm going to buy in the next 5 years. Like there needs to be some clarity on this, like soon.
Yeah, I really hope they need to come out. And now that the deal's final, they can't say like, oh, well, we can't discuss anything right now. But it's just like, no, you probably already know the answer if you're Phil Spencer.
Like, we can't be playing this
out.
game in like 2023 when we see a game announced from Bethesda. Wow, I can't talk. In 2023, when we see a Bethesda game announced, we can't be thinking like, oh, is this one going to be one of the case-by-case multi-platforms? Like, they need to say, you know what, like, put out an image. Like, here are the franchises that are going to be multi-platform going forward. If they're not one of these franchises, consider them, to be exclusive.
Yeah, as of right now,
consider them new first parties. Like, here are the multiple platform franchises. Anything else going forward is considered first party studio.
Yeah, they definitely. I really hope they do that. Thursday is apparently like that day that like everyone's reporting is going to be the day. Which, if you're listening to the podcast version of this, today we'll hopefully find out something. They just need to come out and be like, hey, Indiana Jones, every platform. Why? Because we signed a deal with Disney that said it has to be that way. Elder Scrolls 6, which will be out in like fucking 3 years, it's exclusive. Start saving up for your Series X now. They need to get that stuff like out of the way. And then also maybe, tell people on Xbox when they can get Deathloop or Ghostwire. I mean, we assume it's a year exclusivity, but maybe reveal that.
So I guess I'm curious, like, your thoughts on this: Deathloop or Ghostwire, when and if the time exclusivity window runs out, because that's what it is. Is it on Game Pass day one or
Yes. Yeah.
day 366?
Yeah. I think that's how Microsoft has to do it, and then that will at least incentivize people to pick it up, because we've seen this happen with the Tomb Raider franchise, where the game didn't sell on Xbox. They waited a year for it to come to PlayStation, and it didn't sell too well either, despite it being a really good game, but because it was a year from when the game came out. So, like, if they want to earn any sort of return on investment for this on Xbox, it's through Game Pass. Just be like, finally you can play it, and it's on Game Pass. Like, especially like Microsoft is now in a position to where if they ever say a first party game isn't day one on Game Pass,
people are gonna lose their shit.
Yeah, people are gonna lose their shit. You know, so like Deathloop and Ghostwire will be day one on Series X or day 366 on Series X, because they kind of put themselves in that box. The one time that they decide not to do that, it will be the end of Game Pass. In terms of that would be them being like, yeah, this Game Pass experiment isn't really working out. And then they'll just have to cancel it out.
Do you also think, and this is just kind of just jumping into my head now, because we talked about this months, like a year ago, 9 months ago, of Microsoft's, hey, we're trying to blur the lines of the generations. Do you think that, when Bethesda came out and said, we're making Deathloop and this is our intentions with it, and we're making Ghostwire Tokyo and this is our intentions with it, Microsoft was like, hey, like, we need you to make this on both platforms, and Bethesda was like, well, it won't work. And then they're like, then they were maybe they were in the process of striking some kind of deal or exclusivity deal, and this is why it ended up being Sony exclusive, because I know that the medium is out when I'm saying this, but was Microsoft of the position, because maybe Deathloop was supposed to come sooner than it is, right? Like, it's been delayed.
It was supposed to be launch window.
Right. Okay,
for
so
PS5.
At launch, like Microsoft's always been saying, we play anywhere. Like, do you think that hindered that either hindered the deal with Microsoft or it helped the deal with Sony, because Sony was willing to let them be only next gen?
I don't think I think in that instance, because Deathloop is coming to PC day one as well, I believe. I think it was just Sony
console
saw
exclusivity. Okay.
Yeah, and Sony threw money down. Just because if it wasn't coming to PC, then I would be like, oh, this is like a hardware thing.
Right.
This is like Deathloop cannot run on a standard hard drive, but apparently it can. So I'm just, if I were to guess, I would think that Sony just dropped money down, because Sony probably looked at their first parties and were like, shit, Santa Monica just dropped God of War in 2018.
Two Bethesda's next gen only games coming, timed exclusive to Sony.
I think Sony just had to drop the money because they all their studios dropped games too late into the PS4 life cycle, to where it's like God of War, Spider-Man, Last of Us all dropped within the last like 2-3 years, and they are not going to have their sequel ready just yet. So they needed something, because Horizon may or may not come out this holiday, or it's going to slip into next year, to where if Horizon does slip, Sony desperately needs something in there, and I think that's what Deathloop and Ghostwire were going to fulfill, of just like, these are something we can say are exclusives until one of our marquee studios can drop like the proper exclusive.
Okay. All right. So that's it for the news. So we're going to go over short what we're playing and watching. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, mine is a little bit of the same stuff I've been doing. Yakuza Like a Dragon. I'm like 25 to 30 hours into that. I think they're done introducing new game mechanics for me. I had two like grayed out parts of my menu, which were running a confectionery business, which I don't really understand exactly what I'm supposed to do, but I'm just throwing money at it, and it seems to be working. In-game money. And then a Mario Kart clone called Dragon Kart was introduced, and so I'm just getting through that stuff. I think I'm on chapter 8, so just going through that, playing a couple hours every couple days, just hoping I don't run into like one of those crazy dungeons again. like I talked about 2 weeks ago, where I ended up spending what felt like 2 hours just in one dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
And then continuing Final Fantasy 14, me and Sarah completed our first dungeon. She's really got into like the in-game marketplace and of like creating resources and selling them on a marketplace.
Yeah, I saw
Which
her
is
tweet something out about like farming materials for like 5 hours or something.
yeah, it's just like as she's working from home, just has the PlayStation running and the other on the TV that's not too far from her desk, just farming stuff because you can make enough in-game currency to buy cool shit and make cool shit. So it turns out I don't have to ever buy potions because I have like 120 potions right now. I'm kind of breaking the in-game economy to where I don't have to really introduce, or I don't have to like need for any resources just because she's been making so many of them, and then just undercutting people on the marketplace when she sees they're selling it for a certain amount, just undercutting them just because she's just like,
She's cutthroat.
yeah, very vicious in the marketplace. So Final Fantasy 14, we did the dungeon I think last Tuesday when we were like after we recorded, and then just been dabbling here and there. Final Fantasy 14 definitely strikes that like OCD itch of just like, okay, there's a bunch of exclamation points on my map. Let me just go there, clear that up, go there, clear that up. I still think
let's appease chat for the fifth time, I think, and I think you've tweeted this. I think it's been in a Facebook conversation, and you've said it on the podcast. What server are you on?
Siren. I'm on Siren, Johnny.
I think this was a conversation last week with somebody else.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I'm on Siren. I know it's not the most popular one, but we went there because it was popular, or it wasn't as populated, so we didn't have to queue for a ton of time. I'm a warrior, paladin, gladiator. I actually have no idea what I'm doing. Sarah's the one that tells me like exactly what my character is. I'm a tank. I know that much. Everyone keeps telling me to go to Gilgamesh, but that server's too popular, so I just never went there.
Sounds like a Smurf character.
Gilgamesh, yeah, I believe it is a Smurf character. So my cat lady tank is in Siren, and I'm not paying the $20 to move to another.
It costs
server.
$20 to change servers.
Yeah, something like that.
Oh
it's
my
like
gosh.
$10 or $20. So I'm gonna fucking live in that server forever, and until there's no reason for me not to be in there. So Final Fantasy 14 is still the game I play every once in a while. Not to talk about Game Pass too much, but I'm playing NBA 2K21 on Game Pass because
you need a game to play while you listen to podcasts, which is the only reason you play NBA 2K.
Yeah, and Final Fantasy 14 is kind of turned into like a podcast game, but 2K is also my podcast game, and I don't know why I get addicted to just like the GM aspect of the sports games.
You need Road to the Show bad.
I kind of need to go back to Road to the Show.
Well, you might as well just wait now. It's like 3 weeks.
It's been 2 years since I've done Road to the Show. Yeah. So I've just been doing 2K and just being like, oh, let me like make Oklahoma a good team because they have cap space and 1,000 first-round picks. So playing that. We'll talk about 2K later for a community question. And then I'm playing Sakuna of Rice and Ruin on the Switch. So this is a weird combination. So it's like a side-scrolling beat-em-up platformer with a little bit of a farming simulator aspect to it. I'm really early into it, so I won't go too much into detail on this one. But it came out late last year. I remember I played it at E3 like 2 years ago. I don't know when the last E3 was, 3 years ago. So going through that, when I originally played the demo at E3, I don't believe there was any voice acting or anything like that. So when I started up the game earlier, I didn't expect the voice acting to be super anime, which I know Dave doesn't really know what that means, but I just wasn't expecting it to be like...
Is it where like the mouth moves first and then the voice comes out?
No. Just like how the characters talk, like, you know, like kind of like exaggerated, sometimes cutesy, sort of
anime
like voice acting style. Yeah, so I wasn't expecting that, but the gameplay is cool enough. Like your character Sakuna like has like like a scarf or something that can use to like tie up to enemies to pull them near you or pull you close to the enemies, and then you also use that for platforming. So it's a really cool mechanic, and I in early going I like the combination of like you have a farm to manage, and growing the rice on the farm will make you stronger for when you go hunting monsters in the various like dungeons and stuff that are in the game. So it's an interesting mix of stuff. And I found out like I got this from GameFly because I keep forgetting to cancel my GameFly account because I feel
That's
like
where
I'm
my
done with
Link's Awakening game came from, and I'm ready to stop playing it and move on to like Luigi's Mansion 3 or something.
Yeah, I keep doing the thing where I do GameFly, but I keep the game for too much. So I'm just like, why the fuck did I like do this? I got to like get better at this.
Even
Like,
so, like if you spend like what, like $8 a month, and and at least you're only spending $8 a month on a game, and then you play it, beat it, and you're done, versus spending 30 to 70, and then it just sits on your shelf. Or on your hard drive, or in this case, in your digital hard drive, because you can't download it to your systems because you don't have enough space.
Yeah, it's funny though. This game is apparently kind of rare. Like anytime Wario tweets out that this game's in stock, it sells out real fast. So part of me is just tempted to buy it from GameFly
because you have it, and but you don't send it back, and somebody else just buys it.
Yeah. So I'm kind of tempted to do that. And then I was talking to some people about potentially playing some old games and doing some special podcast episodes. So I'm looking at like my backwards compatibility stuff on the Series X, and I've been also looking at my PS3 collection of just like what games I'd want to tackle on that. And I think the front runner right now is Enslaved Odyssey to the West, which is a Ninja Theory game that kind of came and went.
It's the Hellblade studio, right?
Yeah, that's the Hellblade studio. So I'm thinking of diving into that, and then if that actually leads to me finishing a game, I might do like a special episode on like forgotten games from the like PS3 360 era.
Awesome.
Because I'm feeling nostalgic. And then for watching, bought Lord of the Rings, the extended cuts on 4K UHD Blu-ray. I was trying to find, because I have technically now 2 UHD Blu-ray players. I have a 4K HDR TV, but I had no discs that like took advantage of all that. And streaming just doesn't, you can't get the quality through streaming yet, or my internet is incapable of doing it. So
really,
I mean, you're always going to get a little bit of artifacting. You're always going to get like, it's not going to be as perfect as like having it on disc, so
okay.
So bought a UHD. This was also hard to find. It came out in November and it's been sold out since then. So it finally came back in stock.
Oh, okay. So you bought a UHD movie of Lord of the Rings. You didn't buy a UHD player because you have those with the PS5 and Xbox. Okay.
Like, yeah, which I had to research. Apparently the Series X's UHD player is kind of shit.
Really?
The PS5 one seems to be better in terms of consistency, though it can be a little bit louder than the Series X. The disc spinning.
Okay. Somebody took a microphone and held it up to it and measured the decibels. Okay.
But I like, it's funny. I hear the disc spin in my PS5 more than I hear disc spin in the Xbox.
You're weird.
And I think that's just because the Series X just does.
Do you wear?
Makes you download.
Do you wear headphones when you play? No, you don't, because usually you're sitting with Sarah or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I pay attention to.
I wear
that
headphones
stuff.
when my wife's talking to me, just for the record.
You're a terrible person. And no, it's just funny though, because like the PS5 is silent. The Xbox Series X is super silent, but like the PS5, every once in a while when it spins a disc, it sounds like Sonic winding up to run. And it just does it super random. And then, like, I noticed a weird thing with the Series X where when the Series X is off, it'll just occasionally turn on, but not fully. It'll just turn on, spin the fan, and then turn itself off, which is just bizarre to me. It's just the weird things I notice about both consoles. But me and Sarah watched the extended cuts of Lord of the Rings from Saturday night and then all day Sunday.
You're going to make Angela watch these, and which means that I'm going to have to watch them.
They're 4 hours long each movie.
I know how long they are.
I didn't really because usually when a movie is like, oh, this is the extended cut, they mean like they added 10 minutes.
No.
Not Lord of the Rings. Not Lord of the Rings. It's just like the first one added 40, second one added like 50, and then the third one added another 50. So
all right, so you have the UHD 4K versions of them. People are saying, or like even Angela was looking into this a little bit, and she was reading about it, like it's the I don't know how to phrase it, but it's almost like they feel like it's not the best version because it wasn't designed to be like that.
So the Blu-rays are trash. Like the Blu-rays are really really bad. The UHD 4K ones, Peter Jackson actually went back and they let him redo the color and they let him basically confirm that this is the way he wanted it done. You do lose a little bit of softness from like the original theatrical DVD release, but you get like a way better clarity and crispness from the UHD ones. So it's just a matter of preference. Like some softness and some like some pink colors are kind of lost in the UHD one, but it is significantly better than the Blu-rays that came out that added like a blue tint to all the movies.
Okay.
So like if you have the original DVDs, you're fine with those. They have like the original softness that those movies were known for, and then the UHD is just like I really liked it because I'd rather the image be clearer than adding some sort of like extra color to it. But stay away from the Blu-rays. The Blu-rays are really bad. I was looking at comparison videos for all of them before I made the purchase, and the Blu-rays just were shockingly terrible. What they did with those. But that's it for me.
Okay. So like just like watching really quick, like I've been watching. Again, like I just watch these shows whether people like it or don't like it. So on CBS there's a show called The Equalizer with Queen Latifah. She plays a former CIA agent that walked away from the CIA and now just tries to help, people that are down on their luck or not getting treated properly. And it's got an interesting story dynamic to it, and the surface of what they're laying out. I don't know if the show's built for the long run. We'll have to see, but there's definitely a good dynamic between Queen Latifah's character and then the two people that she has like helping her, and then her kind of like budding rivalry with this rogue like detective. But I'm pretty impressed with it. I'm entertained by it. We watched the season finale of WandaVision.
So good.
And yeah, so seeing how that's gonna play out, I could definitely see that show being a topic for us on either just a random bonus podcast episode or a Patreon episode. So like that's definitely there's definitely a lot going on in there with what Disney was able to do with that. I'm excited. I'm tempered excited, but excited for Winter Soldier and Falcon. Is that the name of it? Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Comes out next week.
Yeah, so that one should hopefully be interesting. And then, like my wife and I were talking, and as long as Black Widow's date holds for May, that'll probably be our 15-month break from the movies. Like we'll go to the theater for that. So that there seems to be like MCU is a big deal. Angela really likes those movies, and I like them as well. And so like for us to just instantly just know that a movie comes out, we want to go see it in theaters. Like that's usually a no brainer for us. I've still been messing around with Destiny, so there is a there's a glitch in Destiny, but it's actually a pretty hilarious one. So you can actually take larger than normal fire teams into activities now through a matchmaking glitch. One of the things you can do is a 12-man raid, which is only supposed to be a 6-man activity.
That sounds like it breaks it.
It doesn't break it. It does struggle a little bit, but it's a lot of fun just to kind of mess around in there with double the teams. And so I did a 12-man raid the other night.
Would it break if you had 12 PS5 users?
I think we did.
Okay.
But I think we had a couple.
To see if, like, the hardware can, fix that.
But you take like 9. You take because you can start putting more than 6 people on your fire team if the game thinks you're going to do like a private match. And so you have like 9 or 10 people on one fire team, and you have 2 people on the other fire team, and then like you launch and you try to join that fire team at the same time. And that allows, for whatever reason, it's just all of a sudden you join up and there's a bunch of you in there. So like that was a lot of fun. And like Bungie kind of came out in their weekly update and said, hey, like we know this is a thing. And my opinion, the way that they phrased the way they phrased their statement around this was essentially them saying, we don't know how to fix this yet, so have fun, but be aware that the game can struggle. if you do this is not how it's intended to be done. So you might see
Yeah.
some weird things happening. So they kind of came out and talked about that, and that was, like, that was really cool. It's really Destiny as a whole has really hit a sweet spot for me. I signed in today, like right at reset, and there was like 5 or 6 new things for me to do, and I was able to knock a couple of them out right away. So again, like and that rewards you with the stuff that you need to continue, or weapons or loot, and the gameplay loop is there. It's solid. There's a lot of people that are playing again. There's people that haven't played in like 18 or 24 months that I saw come back, and they're asking questions in our Discord. And it's when that starts happening, you can definitely tell that there's something good going there. I played a little bit more Link's Awakening. It's just kind of progressing through that Zelda. That's not grabbing me as much as I was hoping that a Zelda game would.
Mm-hmm.
I need to go back and play Breath of the Wild. And then I just need to find. I know we talked about before. I'm actually looking forward to Skyward Sword. Even though I know what happens in those games, like replaying through a Zelda game after like 7 or 9 years, I think will be fun. Not playing it with multi controls.
Do you think Breath of the Wild broke you on old Zelda games, or is this just Link Awakening not doing it for you?
I think Link's Awakening's not doing it for me. I also don't class. Okay. There's a lot of issues that I personally have with Breath of the Wild in terms of like the way it's built, and I think that's part of why like I haven't had this tangible desire to finish it. I'm kind of like, okay, I'm okay with like, but now I'm like, I want to go back, and I really kind of want to see how it ends. But that's why like Skyward Sword seems to be something I'm hoping for. The rumors surrounding around what Breath of the Wild 2 may or may not be definitely has me intrigued. To see it might be going back to its roots a little bit as more of a dungeon crawler, which is kind of what I really was wanting. A really good story with a dungeon crawler, which is kind of what I was hoping Link's Awakening was, and it is a dungeon crawler, but it's a Game Boy game. So then we picked Owen up Super Mario 3D World and Bowser's Fury, which I thought Bowser's Fury was kind of like an expansion to this game, but it's essentially like a separate game you load up in the menu.
Yeah, it's like a weird experiment too. It's kind of
and it's
cool.
Like open world Mario, and Owen is super struggling with it.
Yeah,
like you're out there. I was helping him a little bit. You can play co-op in it too, like where you control like the second player controls Bowser Jr. And you're kind of just like tagging along for the ride. And I was like, this isn't fun for me to like. Give me Mario, like, and he can tag along with me, But then, like, Bowser just randomly shows up, like this humongous version of Bowser just randomly shows up and literally rains a ton of fire on you, and then he goes away. It's like an open world, like, event, and I'm like, what is going on here? And then
it's super.
Owen's
super
like, here's
strange.
a map, and I'm like, where are you? You get to this other area on the map, and it does the similar thing where I equate it to like jumping in the paintings, like in Mario 64, where you jump in the painting and it would say you've got 4 of the 5 stars. You don't have the blue coin star yet. But then I feel like you kind of come up to these areas, and it says like you need another moon or a cat thing, and Owen's like, oh, you need to like praise to the cat shrine. I'm like, what the heck is going on here? And he was only like 45 minutes or an hour in, so like the tutorials couldn't have been done. So I just like, we bought him that game. He was super excited to get that game. And then like 2 hours later, he's like, I want to play. I'm like, why aren't you playing your game? And he's like, and I'm playing it with him. I'm like, this is weird. So like, that's definitely an interesting dynamic. I need to mess with it a little bit more. And it's just something feels off about Bowser's Fury. Like the Super Mario 3D World looks cool. Like doing a bunch of multiplayer co-op with it. I'll have to see how that works and have some fun with Angela and Owen with that. See, but for the most part, that's it. I'm excited that baseball is kind of starting up again. Like there's been some spring training games on, so we're about a month away from baseball. I did not even realize or know that the basketball All-Star game happened.
I didn't either.
Yeah,
I was we were in between Lord of the Rings movies, or like disc 2 of like the second movie. And then I look at my phone, because I didn't use my phone like at all this weekend when I was watching Lord of the Rings. And then like look at my phone, I'm like, the fucking All-Star game?
I knew it was coming up, and I knew they were talking about it, and I heard March, and I'm like, okay, so it's like mid to late March, not early March, and they did all the activities on one night, and then the only reason I remembered that it happened is because like 2 players, I guess, went to go get their haircut and got exposed to COVID or something.
Yeah.
So I was like, Oh, and then I was also working on Sunday, but um, so like it just seems like the NBA season is what it is. Like it's so weird with so many games being canceled and postponed. Same thing with college basketball. However, I am planning on doing a college basketball NCAA tournament bracket. I will post links as soon as I can on on in the Facebook group and in Discord. I'm not putting it on Twitter, so don't look for it on Twitter. It'll be in the Facebook group and it'll be in Discord. Both of those are closed networks. I just don't want a bunch of people filling out random brackets. And then there'll also be a password with it, and I'll post all that stuff there. And it'll be a $25 gift card to the winner at this point in time, like wherever you want the gift card to be. If you want it to be like Taco Bell or Nintendo eShop or PlayStation or whatever, Applebee's, like whatever you want, it'll be a $25 gift card. We'll just purchase it from our DDG funds and send it to you. So please consider filling that out. And this year, out of any year, I would say that you could literally just throw darts at a dartboard and pick your games.
Yeah. I'm picking COVID this year.
So that is something I definitely want to do, and it's something we've done in our previous lives. So it seems to be a lot of fun. I don't care if KL Stevens thinks he's going to win again. I don't remember him winning in the first place. But yeah, that's it for playing and watching for me. Of terms of what I can think of, I did redo a lot of my office. There's some pictures of that on Facebook group and pictures of that on Discord. So I hooked up my BenQ monitor. I don't have the specs of my monitor in front of me right now, but it's a 1080p HDR10 monitor. So I've got that hooked up, and that kind of started. I picked up another desk on Facebook Marketplace to try to clean some stuff up and change some stuff. If you're watching on Twitch, the background's a little bit different. I will take some more pictures and show some stuff as I get some more things done, but my office is a mess. Yeah, the office looks good of what you can see right now, Dave. That's about it. Michael can see a little bit. Michael can see a little bit more because he sees a different camera. So I definitely focused on one area today. But I'll send out some more stuff. But it's trying to find that balance of, like my wife has been doing a lot of virtual tutoring as a side job that she does. My son is obviously doing virtual college, so and just trying to streamline stuff and still have workspace and spaces for everybody. It has been an interesting challenge, and it's gotten me to get some more stuff out and looking at making some other smaller upgrades to some stuff for my own OCD-ness. But that's it. So we're going to move into questions and comments. You can send those to us using hashtag AskDigitalDays. There's a channel in the Discord strictly for it. You can post them in the Facebook group. You can put them on Twitter using that hashtag as well. You can email them to us, podcast at digitaldaysgaming.com. Wow. So Darren sends one in. What is everyone's opinion? And if you have a Series X and a game comes on, and the only option is the last gen version. So he's talking about NBA 2K21. NBA 2K21 was added to Game Pass, and however, it is the Xbox One version of the game.
It's not next gen,
right? That doesn't. I was actually initially surprised that a 2K game was being added. And then I saw that it was the previous gen version, and I think this is one of the things where I'm like, hey, you can check it out, and if you want the better version, you can buy it.
Yeah. So I don't have it definitely sucks. I don't have a problem with it because it's a sports game. I do have a problem with it is when it's like, if it was any other type of game, I would be annoyed. Like Control is on there, but it's not the Ultimate Edition, so it's only the last gen one. That sucks. I think that is really shitty. But that's the publisher's preference. I think it's shitty that the EA games are only the base game, none of the DLC, but that's like a shitty business aspect of it. So those are definitely things that I have a problem with in Game Pass. It's just like, really, you can't give me all the Dragon Age DLC? Like, you can't just throw that on there? You're really hoping that I buy that DLC? It's like, just include all that stuff. But when it comes to NBA 2K21, I do notice differences between the next gen and the last gen version, but they're all very minor differences. So I don't really mind it because it's a sports game. But like, if they do this with like a Bethesda game or something like that, or like one of their first party games, then I would probably be pissed. If it was like, I don't know, if it was the old version of Halo Infinite, like the Xbox One Halo Infinite, and then there was Halo Infinite Series X was a separate purchase, I would be annoyed by that.
Hmm.
But I'll give them a pass because it's 2K21, and I don't think anyone is expecting NBA 2K21 to be on there because they already have like the live games from 4 years ago.
Well, and,
So
and again, this is the same company that like didn't offer any kind of real true next gen upgrade unless you bought the Ultimate Edition. I mean, this is 2K being 2K.
yeah,
So the fact that we're getting a game 6 months after launch on a Game Pass service like that of something that typically in the top 15 NPD numbers for at the end of
right
the
now
year.
is when it would be on sale. Usually around the
Yeah.
All-Star game, it would be on sale.
Yeah.
So I think it's on sale right now, but still, I think the next gen ones aren't on sale like anywhere really. So this definitely sucks. Hopefully, this is something that like Microsoft can like demand in the future if Game Pass like establishes
Well,
itself enough that they could tell publishers like we
how
only
many
want the
Xbox?
best.
Well, but okay. I guess the other caveat is if it's only the Series X or if it's only the Series version, does it work on Xbox One?
Well, no, they would have to just if it's a game that's on different platforms, they use smart delivery to give you the right one, since that is like a feature that they talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But 2K just didn't have an upgrade path. Like they were just
Right.
like, oh, if you have to spend an extra $70, there's no upgrade path. So this is on 2K.
So I think that this might have been one of the things where it was like maybe they were trying to negotiate that, and then 2K was saying you can have one or the other. And let's be honest, like if you're gonna have the choice,
there's
more people on the one than there is on the Series.
yeah. So that's a good point. Probably what ended up causing it.
Because then it can run just a little better on the Series, but it runs fine on the one. Little better in air quotes.
Yeah, it's just graphical differences.
Yeah. So Matt writes as he's caught up on the recent 2 episodes of the topics of dirty controllers. I think it's probably down to eating while gaming. He's referencing a question we had before about people somehow getting their controllers dirty. Mine have never gotten funky. Even my PS1 controller is still clean. Here's my question: do you have any unwritten rules about eating while gaming? How do you feel about people munching and lip smacking while over party chat? I personally don't. I'm sorry, my vertical monitor is messing this up. So,
I'll finish it.
go ahead.
Do you have any unwritten rules about eating while gaming? How tolerant are you about people munching and lip smacking over the party chat? I generally don't eat while gaming, but if I do, I keep it soft, non-crunchy, jerky, fruit, etc., and mute my mic. What is your favorite gaming snack? And yes, I'm pretty sure I have misophonia. That's a disorder in which certain sounds trigger emotional responses. Okay, for me, I don't eat while gaming. I just don't. I can't. I will put the controller down, eat, wash my hands, pick up the controller again, and play. I absolutely hate when people are eating chips or something loud
Yes.
while gaming. I will just mute them. I won't be like, "Hey, can you shut the fuck up?" Even though I want to. I mean, if they're a close friend, I'll tell them shut the fuck up. But otherwise, I just mute them, and then I just won't have to hear them. And if we're playing a co-op game, sucks. But like I'll just mute people for that. But yeah, that bothers me. I know we have like the ability for mics to like not pick up clicking. If someone can work on a technology for like headphones or microphones not to pick up chewing, that would be perfect. I would buy that Turtle Beach headset.
I do eat while I game. Typically it's like it ends up kind of being like a time thing for me. There's something I want to do like when I get home from work, and I also still want to like function or watch TV shows, like, so I'll try to like multitask a little bit. However, I am cognizant of what I'm eating usually, and I will say that one of the coolest features that I like on the PS5 that I didn't think I would like is that push to mute button on the controller. It's great. And it even mutes like my headsets even with the flip down mic. My Turtle Beach has the flip down mic, and I can leave it down and I can mute it, and it'll just mute, and that's great. And I can unmute it, so it's really simple and easy. Typically 90% of the time when I do eat while I'm playing, I do try to make sure I'm muted, as well as I will eat with silverware. So it's very, very rarely like finger food. But yes, I will multitask and eat while I'm playing. It's some of the conversations that happen around this question in the Facebook group are hilarious. Like one of our community members eats potato chips with chopsticks while she's playing.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if that was a full joke or not, but I guess it's a
I
way.
can't
But
use chopsticks even when I wouldn't be playing games.
yeah, yeah. I mean that is definitely a way to do it. I just never. I think it's because I had an older brother who was like super like annoying about like messing up his controller. So it's just
Uh-huh.
in my head to just be like, okay, I'm just not gonna eat. Why play? Um. So yeah, and then I'm always like, I hate if I'm in a party chat and people are making noise. But then again, I kind of stay away from the party chat. I only party chat with like my three best friends,
Yeah.
pretty much. So they all kind of stay away from like eating
The
because we all
problem I
know each
have
other.
too, like I love my Turtle Beach headsets. Like I love them, like especially when I'm playing upstairs in the living room. They're great. That is one like super hot mic though. Like Angela can be like multiple feet away from me and people can hear exactly what she's saying.
Yeah.
Um, and so there's definitely like I've usually been amazed at that. Or Owen can be like in the other room and he'll call me, and then somebody will be like, "Hey, your son's calling you." Like I can't hear him, because like my headphones, but they can hear him on the microphone. So I'm definitely a little cognizant of that. So, but just some of the conversations that we're like, I'm not going to be the one that's going to sit there and like crumple a bag of chips on the microphone while you're eating, like while
Yeah.
trying to eat, or like pretzels. Like I'm not going to do that to somebody. If I do end up,
Especially pretzels. Pretzels are the worst.
oh my gosh, I can't believe you hate pretzels. Ugh.
They're fucking nasty. Like the pretzel chips, those are fucking
No,
terrible.
I'm just talking about like
If I'm ever
pretzels.
Oh, okay, okay. I thought, but the ones that are the Snyder's one that are in like the bag or something like that, like the pretzel chips, terrible. If I'm ever offered, so if anyone ever offers me like pretzel chips and I'm at their house, I'm assuming they want me to leave.
Oh my god.
Like I'm just, they just want me gone. Pretzels. Ugh.
All right, and then I think we touched upon this a little bit, but Randy also writes a question: is what are the chances that before this generation is over, we will see first-party games become timed exclusives, and eventually go to competing consoles? We already see the game on PC, games like Horizon on PC.
I think I don't see first party games coming to rival consoles. I think PC is just a market that they're experimenting with, though it made me like realize, I think maybe even Facebook group, that like if Sony's gonna release stuff on PC even years later, doesn't it kind of almost hinder what they can do with an SSD on PS5 if they have to take into account that like, oh, we're gonna be on slower hard drives in the future, which kind of scares me. But I think the console manufacturers don't consider PC competition. They see it as extra money, like free money, basically. So I see PC just living in this circle where, like, if you're a PC gamer, it's fucking great. Outside of the money you have to put into the hobby, you're getting Xbox exclusives, and if you're patient, you get PlayStation exclusives. Like
Yeah,
years
I
later.
think what you're saying about the SSD is what they've been touting with the PS5. Like, I think it'll be interesting in 3 years if like Ratchet and Clank comes to PC, or if well, I can't think of any other direct first party titles right now. It's like
The Last of Us 3.
yeah, like in terms of a PS5 only game, I think right. Like I strongly feel like Horizon 2 will be on PC eventually. We already know that Days Gone is coming there. A lot of these games use engines that can transfer to PC easily. So like we'll definitely see, like we see benefits of the hard drive, like when you're playing Days Gone on PS5, you see benefits of the SSD, but the game still ran fine on PS4. So and then yeah, like I was gonna say, like in the next, Dave from Philly said the same thing. In the next 3 years, like the compatible, like the SSD market will probably stabilize a little bit more, and you'll probably see that as more of a common thing in a PC.
Yeah, except the ones that the PlayStation uses still really high quality, which is going to be expensive, or not high quality, like high like standards that you
But I think
won't see.
they'll also just optimize them for when they build them to the PC. That maybe it'll just be a little bit more load time. But like to your point, like can you jump dimensions in Ratchet if it's not the SSD?
Yeah, like would Ratchet be the only one that just happens to not make it to
Right.
PC, but every other exclusive does? I'm just thinking more of just like when Cerny during that weird GDC presentation was like, this SSD is going to fundamentally change game design. You can't do that if you're bringing them to PC because you have to account for so many different drives.
But at the same time, we have seen times where people have purchased a PC game, put it in their system, and the PC's like, "Sorry, bro, this won't work."
Yeah, yeah,
So,
definitely have seen that too.
all right, those are our questions for the week. As like we said before, you can send those in using hashtag AskDigitalDays. There's a bunch of links in the show notes for you to join the community and interact with us, hang out with us, and ask your questions. So other than that, you can follow the main account at Digital Days Pod. You can follow Michael at the first MJC 1ST. You can follow myself at Good Dave Hunt. Links to the Facebook group, Discord channel are all in the show notes. Also, patreon.com/digitaldaysgaming, where there's a $1 tip jar tier, $3 Discord access, which is to a private server, not to the regular Discord. $5 gets you the podcast 24 hours early, so you get it on Wednesday morning instead of Thursday morning. And $7 gets you the monthly bonus episode, which we just released one for our Game of the Generation, which was the best games that Michael and I played on PS4 because we didn't own Xbox Ones. So, other than that, I hope everyone has a great week. You got anything else, Michael?
No, no, nothing else. We started a little late, so I'm just getting a little hungry.
Yeah, I apologize. So, and I hope everyone, like we said before, has a great week and keep moving forward.
See ya.